Well, we managed to score 3 goals into David Martindale's very hard to beat Livingston side today with a B team on the park. We couldn't even score one into Kairat Almaty with our best 11 on the park. That's the story of football sometimes. A tale of two halves this afternoon, but a win for Celtic, and we looked much more like ourselves this afternoon. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Welcome to the match reaction. Celtic 3, Livingston 0. There was a bit of anxiety at half time, wasn't there? I think everybody was sighing with that same sigh of discomfort that we maybe had at half time on Wednesday night. Little did we know that Celtic would look much more like themselves in the second half. 3 goals to ensure 3 points this afternoon in the Scottish Premiership, and a confidence builder ahead of Tuesday's huge game in Kazakhstan. Listen, with the B team on the park, I'm very happy with what I've seen today. I'm going to sit here and be honest with you, I had very little complaints. I think there's things that we can talk about and critique as usual. Not everything was perfect this afternoon, but that team selection, when that was dropped at around 2 o'clock this afternoon, or 1:30 this afternoon, I think we all kind of waited with a little bit of wonder and anxiety about how Celtic would handle their business today, with so many names in that team sheet that we aren't used to seeing. And they handled it pretty well, I must say. I wasn't expecting Celtic to go out there and score 3, 4, 5 goals today. I would have took 3 points by any means necessary with that team on the park. And I think a few of the players can leave with their heads held high from the performances they gave this afternoon. So, listen, I'm not going to spin any negative narratives out there at this moment in time, because what would be the point when there is so much negativity, it feels like, surrounding the club right now, with the failures of Wednesday night and the failures of the transfer window? It's nice to actually have some positives sprinkled in amongst it all, and today was a big positive for me. 3 points in the league is always a positive. 3 goals, clean sheet, up the road, happy days. So let's take it back to the start. Hands up if you had no faith this afternoon when you saw that team sheet. Listen, when I seen it, my first reaction was, oh Christ. Quite gently, that was my first reaction. Oh Christ. I'll just be perfectly honest about it. But I still knew it was a team that was capable of getting the job done today. It didn't matter how many changes Celtic made to the team today. The fact of the matter is, Celtic, no matter what side they field, in 90% of Scottish Premiership games, should still be beating the opponents. And I don't mean that out of disrespect to Livingston or any other Scottish Premiership side, but the gulf is huge. It's almost the same as the gulf that existed on Wednesday. That's why Wednesday was such a disaster or a calamity of a result, because our best team couldn't score a single goal into a team from Kazakhstan. But no matter what team you really put out there, as long as there's first team stars sprinkled amongst it, you should be beating teams at Celtic Park. Doesn't matter if it's Livingston, doesn't matter if it's Aberdeen, Hearts, whatever. We should be winning all of our home games. So I still knew that would happen. I was just a little bit shocked that Rodgers went so heavy with the changes, especially with the fact that this was a game that we had the option to postpone. Keep that in mind. Brendan Rodgers and Celtic had the chance to postpone this game if they wanted to, which is, I'm just going to make this clear. Didn't matter what happened today, if it was 1-0, 3-0 or Livingston got a result. I think Celtic made the right decision to play that game this afternoon. I think they always should have played it, and I know after Wednesday a lot of people were saying, oh great, now we've got this game to play on Saturday. I've always been of the mindset that it was the correct decision to play today's game, and I'm glad that we did. But I looked at that team and I thought, right, it might be a struggle, it might be a tough watch, but if we can go and win, I'll be very happy with that. And there were so many questions to be asked about the likes of Inamura being in there, especially after Rodgers came out and said that he was somebody that needed a loan move and isn't up to standard. There was questions about some of the attacking-minded players as well, like Yamada. And even though I don't think all of these guys maybe answered the questions that have surrounded them today, they still went out and were part of a winning team. So that's what I think the most important thing is here. And, I've seen a lot of people getting carried away pre-match about the Inamura stuff, because Rodgers came out and said 3 days ago that he's not up to standard and that he needs a loan move. So people were like, oh, he's backtracking on his word. He's starting here. I think it would be a very different story if Austin Trusty was fit today. In my mind anyway, I think the back four would have consisted of Ralston, Murray, Trusty and Scales. Almost identical to what played against Falkirk last week if Trusty didn't drop out. I don't think Inamura was meant to be in. There's also reports coming out today during the game that Celtic are in negotiations for a left back, which we'll talk about tomorrow on the channel. So to me, that signals that Inamura was not part of the plans until Trusty dropped out, and he didn't really have any other options. He wanted to give Vickers a rest. I think he should have gave Vickers a rest. He was right in that. So I'm not shocked that Inamura was in there. And guys, it's Livingston. So if you're trying to make a big meal out of it after what Roger said, I don't see the point. He's came in because he had to come in today, and it was a team that got a lot of people talking, but it was a team that got the job done. First half wasn't great. I think we could all be honest about that. And as I said, halftime I think brought a lot of the same anxieties on that came about on Wednesday. But we just couldn't get a goal. Same story. And the same narrative comes out of the game of how badly we need attacking talent. Because as much as I'm happy about today, and as much as I said I'm not going to spin a negative on things, we still didn't score a goal in that first half, and we looked as though we could have played another 45 minutes without scoring. We had a couple of really good chances. There was a great save from the Livingston keeper off the back of a Yang shot, but like, you just noticed the absence of a real quality striker in the first half, didn't you? We didn't have a Kyogo, a Yakimakis, a Dembele and Edouard. These strikers, or Griffiths, these strikers we've had over the past decade. It wasn't there, and I feel sorry for Yamada. I don't think that his service has been quite up to scratch. I don't think he's got the quality the service that he would like to maybe show off his talents. But you've got to make your chances as well, and it just didn't feel like it was there for us in the first half. Defensively, Livingston didn't lay a glove on us. We defended really, really well, but it just was the same old from Wednesday, and I go back to the St Mirren game as well. It looked like a Celtic side that were maybe running out of ideas at the time in the first half. And there was some real questionable performances as well, I thought. I mean, I look at Yang's first half performance, and I thought he was shocking. I thought he was really, really bad. He was struggling to beat a man. He was making poor decisions. He looked poor. I don't think Nygren had the greatest first half, but I thought he was the most lively of the attackers. He was trying to make things happen. I thought he was okay, but it wasn't great. Yamada, as I said, was a bit non-existent in the game. There was just nothing in that forward line in the first half. And it brought on that same line of thinking that if we didn't score early in the second half, we could have been in for another toxic atmosphere. The sack the board chance were already going in the first half, but it could have been getting even more toxic. We could have been staring down the barrel of another game where we failed to win. And I don't think Celtic fans, including myself, can be blamed for that state of thinking come half-time, because there was really just a real lack of quality when it came to trying to score goals. But the story changed in the second half, and we've seen a Celtic that were much more lively, and we managed to become much more lively before we even made changes, because instantly, as the second half basically kicked off, Celtic went up the park and found their first goal, and it was through an opportunity that was handed to Benjamin Nygren, one he couldn't miss, a tap-in goal, but it was really well done to allow that chance to come about. I mean, you could talk about tap-ins all you like, but something's got to happen to open up a tap-in, and Yang must have seen my tweet at half-time about how poor he was in the first half, because he started the second half brilliantly, and he basically does all the work to create that first goal. His shot is parried away by the goalkeeper. Nygren is there to follow up on it, makes it 1-0, opened the game up a wee bit more for Celtic, but we just looked a lot livelier from the get-go, and I think there was a real desire amongst the team to make sure that we didn't have an edgy crowd going on as the minutes passed. They didn't want the crowd to be on their back, because you could feel that at the end of the first half, especially with the couple of chances leading up to the great save. The fans were getting a little bit on top of the players, and the impatience was growing. I think you could see it amongst the Celtic players not to allow that to build throughout the second half, and they really wanted to get that job done quickly, and they did. Benjamin Nygren, right place, right time, puts the goal in. He also scores the second through another tap-in as well. That finished the game off, it felt like. But Celtic were flowing at that point, I thought. We made changes by the 70th minute that brought a lot more of the familiar faces on. Callum McGregor, Dyson Maeda, for example. And how good did Dyson Maeda look in that second half? He looked a lot more like himself. A lot better than what he's looked in the opening fixtures of this campaign. He had to do double duty through the middle on the left-hand side as well, but I thought he'd done both pretty well. I thought that the service leading up to the final third as well was good from the midfield in the second half. Yeah, we just looked like a much more comfortable side. And this was after, there was a period of 5 minutes or so before we scored our second, where Livingston started getting themselves into the game, and I thought Celtic had let the head drop, but they didn't. They picked themselves back up. They went up and scored that second goal that basically killed the game, and we just looked a lot better and a lot more like ourselves. And Johnny Kenny finished it off with a 3-0 goal that was his first of the season. that was our strikers' first of the season. I mean, all of our collective strikers, by the way. 5 games in, we finally have a striker that scored a goal. But it's not a great return. It's 1 goal in 5. So the question still has to be asked. But he took it really, really well. I'm chuffed for him to see him score as well, Johnny Kenny. I think he's been working hard and he deserves it. And maybe that will give him the motivation and the confidence to be somebody that between now and the next 9 days, between the end of the window, could be trusted by Brendan Rodgers to score more. It was a good finish. Dyson Maeda with the assist as well. And yeah, finished off the game for us, looked a lot better. I've basically repeated myself about 900 times, but we just looked like more of a football team in the second half, rather than relying on moments from certain players, or relying on maybe a pass that we got lucky with. We just looked like a better football team, I thought, in that second half, and it gives me confidence for the game on Tuesday. So takeaways from the game that I haven't mentioned, because we have to fit this in a 10-20 minute video, that I want to cover very quickly. Dane Murray, he looks brilliant. I really like Dane Murray, I must admit, and he's getting better with every opportunity he's given. The more opportunities he gets, the better, because we need these homegrown players to come through. And Dane Murray's somebody that's been so unlucky with his Celtic career so far, mostly through injury. I think that you can tell Brendan Rodgers really likes him, just the way he spoke about him since he came back to the club. And I think Dane Murray is a Brendan Rodgers centre half. You know, I think he's got the ability to be somebody, the attributes to be somebody that Rodgers really likes there. So a huge shout out for him. I thought he was really good. I thought that Bernardo had a solid game, especially because you could tell he's not all there fitness wise. He's still lacking. He's not played anywhere near the amount of minutes as any of the other midfielders that we rely upon. So I thought that he looked good as well. And I wanted to maybe use one last moment here to talk negatively for the first time in this video. And I don't mean to be nasty about this, but I think we just need to be honest sometimes. You can tell that Rodgers is correct about Inamura. He isn't ready. He didn't have a bad game today by any stretch. Let me just make that very, very clear. But you can tell with players. And he's just not there. Too many sloppy passes. Too many moments where he looked unsure of himself. Too many moments where he was even struggling to shift the ball on his left foot. You can tell he's really uncomfortable with the right foot there. And I think that if you're playing a team that's better than Livingston, Inamura's not going to be ready for that, and especially not for Champions League football. So I think that Rodgers is right on that. I know we've all said, oh, he looked good in pre-season. It's a completely, and I've said this a million times, pre-season's just so different. You can't take a lot from pre-season into the actual competitive fixtures, and I think that stands for Inamura. I'm not saying he can't become good enough. He just needs to be playing football consistently somewhere that is a better level, and somewhere that's going to bring him back to Celtic ready to be thrown into big games. But you can just tell by looking at him. So those were again my 3 takeaways on players that started today's game. But yeah, I thought we were fine. I thought we were good, and hopefully it gives us confidence for these next 2 games, because I've not even spoken about the derby, but the derby's the next domestic game, and that is huge. Yeah, I'm feeling good after today. You know, I'm feeling good. Not a lot of negatives to take away from it. You know, it was good to see the likes of Yamada. I don't think he had a great game by any stretch, but he certainly was trying. And it was the same for many of those players that were on the park today. It's the same with, like, I'm not saying Inamura had a bad game. I just think you can tell that there is a way for him to go. So please don't mince my words or twist my words and turn it into something that I've not said. Nonetheless, very happy about today. 3 points. That's all I have to say. Right, take care. I'm away at the pub. Catch you next time.